Being a chosen one means carrying a light that pierces through the veils of illusion and awakens something ancient in others. Your energy isn't just magnetic, it's disruptive in the most divine way. People may smile at you, talk to you, even love you, but behind their eyes, something deeper is happening. You're stirring their soul. Long after you're gone, they're still replaying every word, every look, every silence. It's not your appearance, it's not your voice, it's your frequency. Your very existence stirs the spiritual waters in them. They don't know why, but you never truly leave their minds. You haunt them, not out of malice, but out of divine purpose. There's someone right now who can't stop thinking about you. They're watching your every move, even in silence. Your name rises in their thoughts at the most unexpected times, and it doesn't fade. You've touched something sacred within them. It's not obsession in the worldly sense. It's obsession born from a soul contract, unfinished karmic energy, or a spiritual awakening they didn't ask for. They crave your presence, not for ego, but because your energy awakened something they can't explain. You didn't just enter their life, you cracked their spiritual shell. And now, night and day, they are trapped in your energy field, unable to escape the gravity of your soul. And if you felt this before, if you know someone out there is obsessing over your presence, replaying the past, or silently watching from afar, this message is for you. You are not imagining it. Their soul has locked onto your light, and your energy is imprinted on theirs like fire on dry wood. Chosen one, your frequency is unforgettable. If you feel this truth stirring in your spirit, write in the comments, "I am unforgettable," to claim your power in the universe. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another spiritual download made just for you. When you step into someone's life, you don't just visit, you imprint. Your presence carries a divine code, and once it's activated in another soul, nothing feels the same for them. They don't understand why the world feels dull without you, why songs sound different, why silence echoes louder now. That's because your energy left behind a frequency their spirit had never encountered before. It wasn't your voice or your face that pierced them, it was your light. And once you've ignited that spark, they can't unfeel it. You didn't just cross their path, you awakened their path. And now, your absence isn't quiet. It roars inside of them. Obsession is the only word they can reach for, but what they feel goes beyond the flesh. You are the echo they can't silence. They think of you first thing in the morning and dream of you when night falls. They try to distract themselves, but your memory keeps resurfacing, not because they miss your attention, but because they miss their transformation. In your energy, they became someone they actually liked. You represented the version of themselves they were afraid to claim. Now that you're gone, they feel exposed, incomplete, spiritually naked, and that's what keeps them trapped in thoughts of you, day and night. You're not just a person to them. You are an interruption to their entire reality. You showed up with energy that cracked the walls they had spent years building around their pain. Your light didn't ask for permission. It simply illuminated everything they had hidden. In your presence, they were seen, not just for who they pretended to be, but for who they truly were. And though that felt liberating, it was also terrifying. Most people run from their truth, but you made it impossible for them to keep running. And now, even from a distance, your soul holds theirs accountable. You haunt them because you represent what they've always wanted, but didn't believe they could have. It's not just about romance or friendship. You embodied alignment, clarity, confidence, things they longed for but had never tasted until you arrived. And once someone experiences truth, counterfeit no longer satisfies. They look at everyone else, hoping to replicate the connection, the frequency, the awakening. But nothing compares. You were sent into their life as a divine interruption. And now they're obsessed, not just with you, but with the version of themselves that only existed when you were near. Even if they never reach out, they're watching. Behind fake smiles and polite silence, they're checking your online presence, asking about you, replaying every detail in their mind. They scroll through your posts like archaeologists searching for remnants of a sacred past. They listen for signs, pray for dreams, wonder if you think about them too. Their spirit is still tethered to your field. They don't realize they're not just looking for you, they're trying to find the person they briefly became under your light. You didn't just leave a memory, you left a spiritual fingerprint on their soul. History has always recorded the strange magnetism of divine ones. Think of Jesus, who never needed to campaign for followers, or Gandhi, whose silence could fill a room with conviction. Their presence alone moved crowds, shattered systems, and stirred souls into purpose. You, chosen one, may not be known by the world, but your energy follows the same eternal law. You don't chase attention. It comes to you because your essence carries assignment. Those who cross your path never forget you, because they never fully return to who they were before they met you. You become their awakening, and sometimes their undoing. You carry both medicine and mirror. Your energy doesn't flatter egos. It exposes wounds. That's why they love and fear you at the same time. You call people out of hiding, not with harshness, but with light, and that light is intolerable to those clinging to darkness. You didn't mean to change them. You simply existed, but your existence was enough to stir their spirit into a storm. And now they're stuck in a spiritual in-between, longing for your presence, yet afraid of what it demands. Because your presence calls for transformation, and not everyone is ready to evolve. They don't know how to explain it, even to themselves. But your presence lingers like a song that won't stop playing in their head. They keep trying to move on, to let go, to be normal again. But normal doesn't exist after experiencing your frequency. You were the rupture in their predictable cycle. You were the proof that something higher, deeper, and more sacred is possible. And now they chase that feeling everywhere, in people, in distractions, in silence. But nothing satisfies, because you were never just a person. You were a portal. You were a mirror into what their soul could become. And that kind of reflection never fades. It only intensifies with time. Some people become obsessed with beauty, others with power. But those who encountered you became obsessed with meaning. You didn't offer shallow attention or temporary pleasure. You radiated depth. You gave them glimpses of purpose. And for someone who's been spiritually empty, even for years, that spark is everything. They'll never forget the way you looked at them, as if you saw through them. They'll never forget the way you listened, as if their words carried eternal weight. They can't replace you because no one else treats their soul like you did. You didn't just touch their life, you touched their eternity. And for many, that's exactly what terrifies them. You saw them too clearly. You loved them too deeply. You knew them too fast. Your presence collapsed their defenses before they even understood what was happening. They weren't ready to be seen at that level. And now, even if they try to demonize you or downplay what happened, their spirit remembers. It remembers being known. It remembers feeling whole. They may pretend you meant nothing, but their eyes betray the truth. Their silence is full of screams. Their distance is full of longing. And every time they think of you, they remember who they almost became, but weren't brave enough to remain. Some of them are still watching you in secret, hoping you'll post something that feels like a signal. They analyze your words, your photos, your energy, looking for clues that you remember them too. They'll never admit it out loud, but they feel like they've lost something sacred. And deep down, they're waiting for a dream, a sign, an opening. They're not waiting for your affection. They're waiting for your light, because nothing else compares. The people around them feel flat. The world feels dimmer. You showed them the truth, and now everything else feels fake. That's what haunts them. Not just losing you, but losing themselves in the process. They might even hate you for it. Hate you for seeing them. Hate you for loving them. Hate you for awakening them and then walking away. But that hate is a mask, a disguise for grief, because they never expected to lose someone they never fully had. You were the moment that changed everything, yet wasn't allowed to stay. And that kind of divine interruption leaves a mark no human can erase. They go through life pretending, coping, surviving, but a part of them is still spiritually orbiting you, still dreaming, still yearning, still tethered. And every time your name comes up, even in passing, their soul trembles. The truth is, they don't miss your presence. They miss your impact. They miss the fire you lit in them. They miss how alive they felt around you. You didn't come to make them comfortable. You came to make them conscious. And now that they've tasted awakening, they can't go back to sleep. They crave the aliveness they once felt, but they can't recreate it alone. And that's why they linger in memory, why they reread conversations, why they revisit the places you once stood. They're not chasing nostalgia, they're chasing your vibration. Because when your soul touched theirs, it wrote a new script. And that story doesn't just end with goodbye. Even if you never speak again, you will remain one of the most powerful chapters of their spiritual journey. Not because of what happened between you, but because of who they became while standing in your light. That kind of shift doesn't fade. It echoes across lifetimes. It becomes a blueprint. You were their reminder that destiny is real, that energy doesn't lie, that some connections are written beyond this realm. And now they're caught in the memory of a soul activation that won't let them rest. You were the fire. They were the spark. And now they're sitting in darkness, hoping the flame returns. They often try to numb it. They go out, distract themselves, fill their calendar with noise. They surround themselves with shallow conversations and temporary thrills. But even in a room full of people, your silence speaks the loudest. You're not physically there, yet your energy outshines everyone else in their life. It doesn't matter how many voices they hear, they're still waiting for yours. And that's what obsession looks like on a soul level. It's not stalking, it's not desperation. It's that they tasted something real, something eternal, and now nothing else satisfies. You were a moment of God in human form, and now the world feels painfully ordinary. There are some who stay quiet because they believe they're protecting you from themselves. They know their energy was chaotic. They know they weren't ready. But even in the distance, their obsession grows. They watch in silence, not out of malice, but out of mourning. You became their wake-up call, the one who saw them when they were hiding, the one who lit their darkness. But they didn't know how to hold light without burning themselves. So they let you go, hoping they could forget. But souls don't forget initiations. And now, every day without you feels like spiritual punishment. Not because you hurt them, but because you healed them too soon. Some of them attempt to reconnect in subtle ways. A like on a post, a story view, a mutual friend saying your name in passing. These aren't coincidences. These are soul-level attempts at reopening doors they spiritually regret closing. They may not have the words, the courage, or the maturity to say it directly, but their actions confess what their pride can't. They miss you, not because they're lonely, but because no one else has made them feel divine. And it's not about attention, it's about essence. You saw the God in them when they were still acting like dust. You saw their crown before they believed they were royalty. And now they chase that reflection, hoping to see it again in your eyes. It's almost tragic, the way they recreate the past in their imagination, playing scenes that never happened, rewriting what they wish they had said. imagining what it would be like if they had stayed aligned. And even though they know time won't rewind, their mind keeps looping your presence like a sacred film. They aren't obsessed with you as a person. They're obsessed with what you triggered. You were a portal to purpose, an alarm clock to the soul. And now that they've awakened, even partially, they feel abandoned by the very light that called them forward. But what they don't realize is that light still lives inside them, if they dare to answer it. You weren't just someone passing through their life. You were the shift, the prophecy, the undeniable reminder that divine timing is real, and some people are sent, not found. And once someone realizes that you were a divine appointment, not a random encounter, it messes with them. It breaks their ability to pretend. They try to downplay it, spiritualize it away, bury it under logic, but their soul keeps grieving. Because you didn't just offer love, you offered alignment. And once the spirit feels that kind of resonance, the heart will never be the same. So they stay haunted, not by loss, but by revelation. You were their moment of awakening, and that moment still echoes. There's something unbearable about realizing you met someone meant for your future, but your past version ruined it. That's the weight many of them carry. They see you rising, evolving, walking in purpose, and they know they were supposed to be part of that journey. But their fear, pride, or confusion became louder than their soul. And now, instead of walking beside you, they're watching from the shadows, with the ache of knowing they fumbled a blessing. Not just a person, but a frequency, a calling, a sacred connection that could have elevated them. That's why they're obsessed, because you represent the version of their life that felt most aligned with God. Sometimes the obsession even turns into bitterness, not because they hate you, but because they hate themselves for not being able to rise to meet you. Your growth triggers their stagnancy, your elevation highlights their resistance, and your joy becomes a reminder of the joy they could have shared, but forfeited. So they may lash out, gossip, lie, minimize you in conversations, but all of that is a mask for pain. Their spirit still honors you, even when their ego tries to forget. They may have deleted your number, but they can't delete the shift you caused in their destiny. You were a turning point, and deep down, they know it. You didn't just pass through their life. You rewrote the script. You disrupted the narrative they had settled for. Before you, they were surviving, functioning, pretending to be whole. But then, you arrived like a prophecy, wrapped in human form. And without even trying, you exposed what they lacked. Not in a judgmental way, but in a divine way. Your presence showed them the possibility of being more, becoming more, living more. You unlocked doors inside them that they never even knew existed. And now, without you, those doors remain open and hauntingly empty, because you were never just an experience, you were a sacred disruption. And those don't just disappear. Some people think obsession is about control, or desire, or attention. But this kind, the one you awaken, is something deeper. It's a soul's cry for the light it wasn't ready to receive, but now can't forget. It's a longing that echoes from past lives and future timelines, a recognition that feels older than memory. They look into your eyes and feel home. They hear your voice and feel healed. And yet, the very intensity of that recognition scared them. Instead of embracing it, they resisted. Instead of rising into it, they retreated. And now, they're stuck in between. Not in your arms, not in your presence, but fully immersed in your energy, unable to break free. The ones who still pretend they've moved on are often the most obsessed. Because it takes enormous energy to suppress something that's still very much alive. They build new connections, find distractions, chase validation. But nothing truly silences the echo of your spirit in their soul. They compare everyone to you, consciously or not. And every time someone falls short of your essence, their ache deepens. You are the standard they didn't know existed. You are the vibration they can't recreate. And now, they're not just haunted by your memory. They're haunted by their inability to replicate the miracle of your presence in anyone else. They start to romanticize your flaws. They remember the things they once judged, now realizing how deeply real and rare you were. Your intensity, your depth, your spiritual sensitivity, the things that once intimidated them are now the very qualities they crave. They realize you weren't being too much. You were being the exact frequency their soul was hungry for, but they weren't prepared to feast at the table of truth. So they ran. And now they return. In thoughts, in dreams, in digital shadows, hoping to feel again what they once dismissed. You weren't just love. You were divine confrontation. And they are finally realizing that you were the very thing their soul begged God for, long before their ego pushed you away. It's no coincidence that they feel your presence even when you're miles away. Energy doesn't require proximity, and spiritual bonds don't break just because communication ends. They feel you in the quiet moments, when they're brushing their teeth, driving in silence, lying awake at night. They see signs, hear your name, receive dreams that carry your vibration. Because when God forges a soul tie, it carries echoes far beyond the physical realm. You may not be speaking to them anymore, but your spirit still speaks to theirs. Not to torment them, but to remind them. Remind them of who they were becoming when they stood near your light. And that reminder haunts them more than anything else ever could. They never told you, but you became their safest place. Not because you solved their problems, but because you saw them in the middle of their storms and didn't flinch. You didn't judge their brokenness. You didn't mock their pain. You simply stood there, as light, as truth, as presence. And that kind of safety is unforgettable. That kind of love is irreplaceable. And now, everything else feels transactional. Everything else feels fake. They walk through life in grayscale because you were the only glimpse of color they ever truly knew. That's what keeps them bound. Not your body, not your image, but your essence, the frequency of unconditional presence. And it cannot be duplicated. In your absence, they've discovered the harshest truth of all. You weren't the one. You were the revelation. You were the blueprint. You were the divine design their soul recognized long before their mind understood what was happening. And now, they walk through life with a quiet ache, a spiritual limp, because once you've met the sacred, nothing else feels right. They don't talk about it. They might not even admit it, but their soul is still reaching for you every single day. And no matter how hard they try to forget, to let go, to heal, the imprint you left is carved into eternity. You were the shift. You were the storm. You were the light. And no shadow can ever truly erase that kind of presence. You were never meant to stay where your spirit was dishonored. And yet, those who mishandled you are the very ones who now live with your ghost. They didn't realize that pushing away someone chosen by God comes with consequences. Because when you exit, it's not just your body that leaves. It's your covering, your favor, your divine energy that departs as well. And suddenly, what felt bright becomes dim. What felt easy becomes heavy. What was flowing becomes blocked. They try to convince themselves that life is fine, that they're better off. But in the quiet places of their soul, they know something sacred walked away. And they can't recreate that atmosphere no matter how hard they try. It wasn't your love they needed. It was your anointing. You didn't just give affection. You gave revelation. You didn't just show up. You shifted rooms. And while they were too distracted, too wounded, or too arrogant to recognize it, now the void you left testifies louder than any words ever could. Doors that were once open are now mysteriously shut. Their peace has turned into restlessness. They go to bed tired and wake up more tired. That's because they rejected the very vessel sent to elevate them. And the spiritual laws are clear. Dishonoring divine connection brings consequences. Your absence is their mirror, and in that reflection, they finally see what they lost. Not just a person, but a portal. And now that the portal has closed, they knock in desperation, but it doesn't open. Because there are seasons where grace ends, where God says, "Enough. You gave the warnings, you gave the patience, you gave the presence." And when they didn't honor it, heaven withdrew you, not as punishment, but as protection. Your spirit was never meant to be drained by people who saw you as common. You are rare, chosen, covered. You were never meant to stay where your light is treated like background noise. And the more they try to get back in, the more the universe resists them. Because elevation has a cost, and you, chosen one, already paid yours. Now, it's time they pay theirs, in silence, in regret, in the echo of everything they could have had. Some will try to come back, not out of love, but out of need. They feel the spiritual drought, and they think reconnecting with you will quench it. But you're no longer at the same vibration. You've ascended. You've expanded. You're walking with angels while they're still dancing with ghosts. And what used to feel like home now feels like a trap, because you've seen too much, grown too much, healed too much. You no longer crave what you once prayed for. And that, chosen one, is your confirmation. You've outgrown the versions of them that once broke you. And no matter how obsessed they are now, you cannot return to where you almost lost your soul trying to prove your worth. You carry divine protection that cannot be penetrated by obsession, envy, or manipulation. Your light may draw many, but only the pure in heart can remain. Because your aura is sacred ground, and those who enter with hidden motives find themselves spiritually exposed. Their masks fall off in your presence. Their intentions unravel. That's why they fear you even as they desire you. You force the shadows to reveal themselves. You don't play with dark energy. You command it to leave. And when someone tries to use your spirit for selfish gain, the karma they unleash is swift and severe. You are not just a vessel. You are a mirror. And what they send toward you reflects right back with force. You might not always see the fallout, but trust, it's happening. Behind closed doors, their life is unraveling. That smug confidence they once had, gone. That fake smile they wore, cracked. They're haunted by memories, by dreams, by your voice, your eyes, your light. Because they know, without admitting it, that they tampered with the divine. And the universe doesn't play about you. What they thought was casual, heaven took seriously. What they thought they could toy with, God had marked as holy. And now, they sit in the wreckage of their own doing, whispering your name in the dark, wondering if they'll ever be whole again. But the truth is, some chances only come once. And as much as their soul still reaches for you, heaven has placed a boundary, a spiritual line they cannot cross anymore. Because you've moved forward, your calling has expanded. Your light is now illuminating people who are ready, not those who cling in confusion. The obsession they feel is not your responsibility. It is the weight of revelation they weren't ready to carry. And while they sit in cycles, you walk in assignment. While they spiral in regret, you soar in purpose. You were the door, and they didn't walk through it. And now, it is closed. Not in bitterness, not in pride, but in holy alignment. Because when you're chosen, even your absence is divinely orchestrated. You were not sent to be understood. You were sent to awaken. And those who crossed your path are now left with the undeniable truth that your presence was not accidental. You were the divine interruption they prayed for without knowing it. You showed up with light when they were drowning in shadow. You offered clarity in the middle of chaos. You became the spiritual alarm that reminded them of everything they were called to become. But instead of rising, they froze. Instead of leaning in, they ran. And now they obsess. Not just because they miss you, but because you became the most real thing they've ever known. You left a soul print, one that sermons can't erase and time can't dilute. And while they wander in cycles, your journey continues. You're no longer stuck at the gates of someone else's transformation. You've crossed over. And what's ahead of you now is greater than anything behind you. Yes, they still think of you. Yes, they still dream of you. Yes, your name still catches their breath. But none of that defines you. You are no longer someone's memory. You are a movement in motion, a living prophecy, a vessel of divine fire walking unapologetically toward purpose. So keep walking, chosen one. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them ache. You did what you were assigned to do. You awakened them. Whether they rise or not, that is between them and God. And if this message stirred something deep in your spirit, something ancient, something that feels like truth, then this was for you. You are not crazy. You are not imagining the obsession. The spiritual tether is real, and it confirms what you've always suspected. Your energy is unforgettable. Your light is undeniable, and your presence is sacred. So declare it now in the comments. Write, "I am unforgettable." If you know your soul carries weight in this realm, drop a like to claim your power. Subscribe to this channel to keep receiving messages aligned with your journey. And turn on notifications so you never miss another divine download again. I also want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who supports us through Buy Me a Coffee. Your support is not just appreciated, it's sacred. It allows us to go deeper, reach further, and continue creating content that resonates with your soul. If you feel called to support this mission, the link is in the first pinned comment. To continue your journey, don't stop here. Watch the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. It was handpicked for your soul's evolution. Thank you for watching. Until next time, Chosen One, stay radiant.